Hello friends and welcome back to another video. My name is Theo and today I'm super excited because we're going to be creating this procedural material that you're seeing right here completely from scratch using just some Redshift noises, and also we're going to be incorporating some image textures if you want to take it to the next level, but if not, you can keep it totally procedural with just noise. And we're going to actually dive in right here and I'm going to explain the theory behind this because this is a little complex to first wrap your mind around, because we're going to be using some more advanced techniques in the node system of Redshift. So if that's something you're interested in, we'll get started right here. But first, I want to say a special thank you to the Patreons. By the way, this material will be uploaded to Patreon to my all access supporters. So if you're interested in grabbing this material, you can go ahead and grab it. Because of the Patreons, I was able to get this really nice, listen right here, this really nice microphone. So smooth. Because of them, I was able to upgrade my system here to make better videos for everyone. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. If not, we're going to jump right in. Okay, so first let's talk about why it's so important to create procedural materials inside of Redshift and Cinema 4D. And the biggest reason is flexibility and reaction time. So you can see right here, we have our procedural material. I'll just turn everything off so you can kind of just see the different layers, and I'll break these down after I explain this, because this is an important concept to understand. So let's say right here we have our base mech and we turned it into our director, we turned it into our art designer, we turned it into our production house, and they love it. But they say, oh, we need a version of this, or later on in the film, we're going to have this robot in a fight. So we're going to need more scratches on this material. So instead of having to re-UV map, redesign, redo everything to the material, we can just go to our scratches layer, which is this layer right here, and re-change the noise that's driving it to expand a little bit more and take up some more space, so it looks like that the material is more scratched up. So you can immediately see how important this is, because this is not only going to make you look like a professional, but it's going to make more people going to want to work with you, because you're able to turn around your projects so fast when you get a revision, rather than having to do all this work. So that's the importance of this. We can rechange scratches, we can rechange grunge layers. Of course, we can go change the color of this coating. We can even, if we wanted to, we can make it way more shiny by adding the shiny layer like it's brand new. So that's kind of the importance of this, and I just wanted to kind of let y'all understand that before I start breaking this down. Okay, so here's our final base mech right here, and I'm going to start from the top, the surface layer, and work my way down. So the way this material was designed was to kind of imitate the real world, and what that means is we're going to have dirt, we're going to have scratches, we're going to have a base paint coat, we're probably going to have another paint coat. And the reason for all that is, the reason we're doing it this way is it's kind of easy to understand, but we're mimicking the real world, so we're going to get some real world looking results here. Cool. So this is our first layer, and this is the layer's blending mode. If it's white, it means that the layer is going to go through and blend on top of all the other layers. If it's black, it means the layer is not going to really blend through. And this is really just a dirt layer. And it's serving multiple purposes. It's serving first to cover up the scratch layer, because we really wouldn't get scratches, and if we look right here, we really won't get scratches down in here usually. So this is also covering up the scratches from the crevices, so that it just looks more realistic, because you wouldn't really expect scratches to be in places where nothing gets scratched. But it's also serving as a dirt layer, so it's just kind of adding some grime, darkening up. You can see how dark this material is. It's really not reflective. It's a dirty layer, and yeah, that's just our first surface layer. Okay, so under our surface layer, we have our scratches, and you can see right here, this metal is really shiny, and the reason for that being is this is our base. We're pretending that this is our base layer. Our base layer would be really shiny and really new and just really fresh. This is like the metal that everything is put on top of, so it hasn't seen a lot of wear and tear. It's gonna be really shiny, and we didn't put too many scratches on here. You can see just enough to make it grimy and enough to add variation. Cool. So this is our grunge layer, and you can have multiple grunge layers, but I really only have one big grunge layer, and it's this one right here. You can see we have a cool bump map driving into displacement, and it's really just adding that extra griminess to it. Okay, so I actually have two of these paint layers. I only rendered one out just so that it wouldn't be too confusing for y'all, but we'll break it down. So this is our first paint layer, and really this is just the newest, freshest coat of paint. All of this other stuff is going to be cutting through on top of it, but it's still pretty fresh. And then I added another paint layer, and this is like our older one, and this one's really worn down, and it's a slightly, I think I made it slightly darker so that it would look like it's more look like it's been around a little longer, because usually if you look at machinery, they're first really bright, really shiny, but as time wears down, the paint, the sun, the UV rays, it kind of all breaks that down. So that's our paint layer right there, and this is our second to last coating of metal. So we have this really just this a little rough, not as rough as our grunge layer, but pretty rough coating of metal, so that when this comes through, there'll be some variation with our final layer, which is this really shiny clean metal. And this is kind of reflecting our final scratches layer. They're just slightly different because I didn't like the look of this material, so I made my own material just for the scratches to cut through. So that's how this looks, and now we're gonna go into Redshift and actually break it down from the top, and I'm going to go completely from nothing to a whole system of nodes that you can follow along with. Okay, my friends, you can see the material right here, and it looks a little crazy, I know. And this is not the most efficient way of doing this. I actually kind of went overboard with the noises. You can see them all right here in the node hierarchy. They're all at the end, and this was really just me trying to create variation. But before we even jump into this, I need to stress this will make your workflow so much faster, and you might be able to apply this to other aspects inside of Cinema 140. So go to Window, Customization, go to Customize Commands, and just search Redshift, or just search, actually you can just search Node. So you see Connect Node to Output. I have that programmed as Shift A. You will just type your shortcut in right there. And the reason we want this is because we can go in here, and let's say we're deving this noise right here, which is going to be a blending mode, and I'll get into that a little bit later. You're going to just click on it and punch Shift A. And look at that. We can now see how this material is going to blend. Let's say we're deving this material right here, Shift A. And it's going to take a little bit, a couple seconds for it to update. But then we get to view that material, and you can see it right there. And if we want to view this material, we'll just punch Shift A. And this is a very glossy material, and like paint material, Shift A, and then I can modify the paint material. And then when we would just want to see the final output, you just go to the material blender and click Shift A. And then you get to see everything update in real time, because this is going to require a lot of that, and you can see how complex this will get, and then you're going to want to view each noise as you modify it. So that's going to be really important throughout this whole process. So let's talk about some important nodes and their function, and then what we're going to do is get into hooking them all together. Okay, up here I pulled out some nodes that you might find useful in this process, and let's just start with the basics right here. This is the Redshift noise node, and this is going to be what's driving mostly all of your blending modes. So we'll punch Shift A right here, and you can see I've modified this noise a little bit. I've added some complexity, I've added some amplitude gain, I've added some frequency scale, and then I've changed the scale of it. And you can see right here that there's not a lot of contrast in this noise, and that's not exactly good for blending these types of materials, because you don't really want overlays. You want a lot of tight, sharp contrast, especially if you're going to be working with a scratches layer or even a grunge layer. So what we'll do is to just add some contrast. I'll do Shift A, and then we'll output the ramp. So I added this ramp on right here, and we'll see it update as it prepares the ray tracing hierarchy for the meshes. And I'm actually just going to turn off our geometry override for now, so that it updates a little bit faster. And now you can see we went from something like this to this. And keep in mind that when we start plugging these nodes into the color, the Redshift Composite node, which is somewhere Redshift Material Blender, that's what it's called. When we start plugging these in, the white will be what we see coming through. So for this particular material, and I'll just turn off the render view since we're not working with a big material. So for this particular material, we will only see it coming through on the white sections. And let's say you want to see more of the material. That's where this node comes in, which is amazing. And this is what's really going to allow you to get detail and flexibility in your material workflow, because you can not have to rely on tweaking one noise. You can add several noises and tweak them individually. So you have some big scale noises, some small scale noises, and they're all screening on top of each other or blending however you want them to. They can even subtract. So let's go ahead and put this noise right here. And then I'm just going to connect it to the base color. And this is the composite node. So what this node is going to do is it's going to composite the colors based on a method that we assign it. I like to use screen. That means that the white's going to come through. But sometimes I try multiply, I try difference, and that's just going to add the variation that you're looking for. And generally, the more noises you have, the more variation you're going to get, and the more complex they'll be. And you can just see if I output like our first blending noise right here, now Shift A, you can see we have all these different noises going on with all this different variation. And as I work my way down the hierarchy by punching Shift A, you can see that variation kind of disappearing. And then we finally trace it down to that base noise. And these are just screened. Most of these are just screened composites right here. So yeah, that's what's going on there, and that's what we're going to be recreating. And this is an important concept because this is going to be the foundation for all your blending modes. You can also do this with image textures. It just won't be procedural at that point, but you can kind of get away with it if you're using like 8Ks, which I will actually incorporate into this material, because some of these things we cannot recreate with noises. Like the scratches are really hard to recreate in that fine detail, and sometimes it's nice to add a grunge or a bump onto your materials. So that's what we'll be doing. So keep this in mind. We have a noise. Driving that noise is a ramp. Then we have a color composite. So let's go ahead and just, by highlighting, then punching Control and dragging down, that's going to come in handy. You'll recreate that noise material, and we'll plug it in. And let's just Shift A this right now so I can explain what's happening here. So this is our noise, and then when we plug this one in, there we go. Nothing really happened. It just got a little bit brighter, and this is going to be the blend color. And we're screening, so white on white is coming through. And the reason that happened was we hadn't changed our original noise. So when I start dragging the scale up, now you can start to see we're getting that variation we're looking for. So what's going to happen here is we're going to start building a tree and a hierarchy for this noise. And if you see me looking back and forth, that's because my render view is over here on the side, so that this can take up like the full screen right here. And I can actually make this a little bit shorter just so it doesn't take up everything. Cool. So really what happens is we have this base idea of creating a noise and then blending it with another noise that's a different type of noise, a different scale, a different amplitude, a different complexity. Some values of it are different, so that when they blend together, they're adding, and you can see right here, we go from something like this to something like this, and it's adding variation on top of that. And as we work our way down the node tree, we just get more and more variation until we find something that we're really happy with. For this material, I decided to go with, what is this, for 8 nodes, 8 noises. And this will slow down your renders for many reasons, because we're stacking materials, so it has to process more materials, but also has to generate these noises. And we're getting to sample rates and stuff, because when we start using curvature, sample rate is something that's going to come in really handy. So we have these 2 noises right here. Whoops. And we can see them outputting like this. And let's say this noise is great, but we really don't like how it's not bright enough. We want it to be a little bit brighter so that material under it's really punching through. And remember, this is just a blending mode. So we're going to go to Out Color and go to Input. and then we're going to Shift A the input, and you can see right here we have a lot of options. This is our color corrector. We just inputted our composite of the noise into the corrector, and then we can go in and say, okay, let's make this more contrasty, and now it's really sharp. We can say, okay, let's change the gamma a little bit. Let's raise that gamma so it's brighter, and now we get this really sharp, contrasty, bright image. And we can also do this in our ramps right here. So let's say, okay, so I want to back this noise off right here. Let's say I'll Shift A the ramp. We'll say, okay, we want to back this noise off right here and make it not so contrasty. So we'll back that off, and then it's going to go through here, go through the color composite, and then go through the correct, and then we have that right there. And okay, so let's say, okay, we don't like that now. So let's take this black and pull it up a little bit. And you can see just like that, we're clamping our values and reassigning them. So this, and we'll get into the curvature because that's a really cool one. So this color invert might come in handy. You can do this with the ramp as well, just by switching these knobs. But I like the node because if you're working on a team, it's sometimes nice for your team to see that you're actually inverting that color, so they know what's going on. They know what's going on there, so they're not confused. They might not realize that your ramp is color inverted until they click on it, and that might become a problem in production. So I like to visually say, hey guys, this is the color invert right here. Cool. So that's just a fun little node. Another thing is color maker, and let's go ahead and grab this composite right here and punch Shift. Whoops, sorry, Control. And we'll take our base color, and then what I'm actually going to do is just take this color invert out of the tree because I don't really want it there. Cool. So we have, and I'm just going to pull this up here because you can branch off multiple nodes, but we're not going to use that for the time being. And we have a color maker. So what you can start doing with this is, I have it set on black. You can start adding black and white value chunks into your node tree, so that, let's say there's not enough, let's say that the noise itself is there's not enough of it, and you don't want to add a crap ton of noise nodes to start getting them to blend over each other. What you can actually do is just create the color yourself. So if you want this whole layer to come through, you can just create it with that right there. So I wanted to mention that. And let's talk about finally this curvature node. So I'm shifting this, and really you can see right off the bat, this is going to come in really handy, and it's going to really sell this realism. So what we have is a curvature node, and it's basically Redshift looking at the geometry, finding curves, and then allowing those curves to come through in screen. So we can modify convex, concave, and people don't like the L curvature, but I sometimes like to use it. So you can see convex, we can redefine the radius. So you can see right there, this could get us a really grungy grime over everything, and just crank it up a lot if we want. And let's talk a little bit about sample rates, because this will come in handy. So let's zoom in right here. You can see that it's not exactly sharp. It's this specular spec, and sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you want sharp cutoffs. So you take this, and this is what's amazing about Redshift. This is why it's used on productions, because you can do stuff like this. We can just increase the sample rate of the curvature, and look how sharp that got. And if I just start cranking it up more, you can start to see it, and it's just crazy sharp, crazy detailed. This will increase your render times though. I like to stay under 128 or around that. And now you can just see before we had all this noise and stuff on the side, and now we have this really sharp, clean cutoff. So that's something important to consider when you're looking at these things. So yeah, this is our curvature node right here. It's gonna come in really handy. What is really nice to do is to drive this node's radius with our noise. So if I go to general, input radius, and then you can start to see where that noise was coming through. We're starting to get these scratches and stuff. So where this white is, you can see right here, it's going to clamp these values down, and then it's going to come through the curvature and say, okay, so where there's white around our radius of the curvature will show white here. And this isn't the perfect example because we don't have a lot of this noise, so what we can do is just go to one of these noises and just clamp the white values. Whoops. Clamp these white values down, take the black down, and now you can kind of see we took it a little too far, and you can really see how this becomes a production workflow so quickly because it just, look at the changes we made just with a couple of clicks. We're able to modify the material that much. And then if we want to just see what this noise is going to contribute, we Shift A. Okay, so it's contributing all of this. We can just trace it down by punching our command and then seeing the blending mode. And this looks really cool. This would be a great, you could add a secondary metal layer to this and add some scratches and stuff on top of it as well. And then add that into our final node, which is going to be right here, the material blender. So this is the node that's making it all happen. This is the node that's taking these colors, taking these materials, taking these blending layers that we've defined, and then adding them together. So, and this is where we're going to really jump into creating the material. So this is where this comes in at. Let's take our material blender, and then we have our curvature, and then let's just go ahead and this, first, what we really need is to start creating materials. So let me just grab a material right here, and then let me Shift A it so you can see. Okay, cool. So we have this material right here. And then let's say this is our base material. So we'll go to material blender and then base color. And then we're going to take our node right here. Let's do the curvature. And then let's go to layer one blend color. So this is our base color and then our layer blend color. So we'll take another material right here and then let's go to base properties and let's make it a plastic material. This is kind of what our paint's made of, and let's make it like a bright blue so we can really just see it cut through. Cool. Okay, so let's take this plastic material and hook it into our layer 1 color. And then let's output that node by punching Shift A. So if you can see right here, whoops, I'll just put it right here so everyone can see. And then I'll hide this off to the side. There we go. Okay, so if you can see right here, we have this blue material coming through where we said that the white material would be. So where that white screening was, we're saying, okay, we're gonna blend you with this blue material. So this blue material is coming through, shining through on top of this. Of course, this doesn't look realistic or anything. This isn't how it would actually be, but it's a foundation. And it's the foundation we're going to build upon when we start creating this material, which will be right now, my friends. Okay, so congratulations if you've made it this far. We're going to be creating material now. This is where the tutorial technically starts. I just thought it was very important that you understand all the theories behind this so you kind of understand why you will do this procedure. Okay, so now we're just going to create a new material, and then we'll just go to Redshift Materials and just a regular old Redshift material. And that's really just the foundation. I'm going to go ahead and take these materials off, and then I'm going to drop it onto this robot that we have right here. And I think it's important that you do this with the object that you're going to actually want to be texturing and adding materials to. This can apply obviously to many things, but to just get the best result when you look deving, make sure you're working with a model. And if the model's not ready yet in the production pipeline, work with one that's at least like that. Talk to the 3D modeler and say, hey, can you give me a reference model or send me to a place that has a reference model that kind of looks like this, so that when you start lighting and rendering, it's going to not be a whole new setup. And okay, so let's go ahead and open it up. So we have our basic Redshift material that automatically comes out, and you see it's just a Redshift material output. The first thing we're going to do is grab this noise, and you can use the Maxon noises now in Redshift, which is really cool. I don't use them currently because the processing takes a little bit longer, I've noticed, so I usually just stuck with the Redshift noise. But keep in mind, if you want crazy variations, Maxon noises allow some really awesome different types of noises that I absolutely love. So yeah, so we have our noise, and we're gonna want to ramp this noise. And keep in mind that you can just ramp inside of here by clipping different values. And I think it's under the coordinates, under the color, you can clip remap, but I actually like to visually do it, and I like to do that for many reasons. One, for me, but also for team members. They can see that I've clamped the noise right here, and they, instead of having to dive through and come back here, they can just grab that clamp and reclamp it real quick to get a quick view result. Okay, so let's grab a color composite as well, and then that's going to be right here. And then let's go ahead and grab our material blender. Whoops, I'm using a Bluetooth mouse. Bluetooth keyboard has some problems like that. Okay, cool. Material blender, really cool. Nice. So let's go ahead and just delete this default material. And we have our output right here. And our output's like, okay, we need to output to it. We can output this material blender right here, and we're not gonna have anything to blend at first. So what we want to do is go over here and let's start creating our materials like they would come in the real life and show up in the real life. So let's grab a just Redshift material, and this is what's really great about Redshift, and I think why it's used in a lot of productions is because it just allows you to pick your material that you want. So we're gonna do an iron material, and let's just Shift A that. So we're gonna call this our base coat. So just base coat. And actually it's not going to be a coat, it'll be more like base metal. Okay, so we have our base metal right here, and let's just go into our base properties and take that roughness down. So our base metal, remember we talked about that earlier, it's going to be really shiny, really clean. So we're going to want it to be shiny and clean as well, just by taking that roughness down, as I have a lot of wear and tear. So let's go ahead and control grab, and then we just copy that material, and this is going to be our rough metal. And it's important to label just so that people on your team know what's going on, and for you later on down the line when you start getting a crazy node system. So now that we have our rough metal, we're just going to take the roughness and just pick a value that you think suits it. And that looks pretty good right there. Cool. So we're going to take our rough metal, and then we're going to plug that in to our material blender, and our base metal, and plug it into our base color. And then we're going to take our rough metal and plug it into layer 1 color. And then we're going to just Shift A the output. And what you're seeing should be what's happening is you're just seeing that base metal, because we haven't said how we want to blend the rough metal yet. And that's where this node comes in right here. So let's take our noise, our ramp, and our color composite. We're going to take our noise, plug it into our ramp, and then we're going to plug it into our color composite. And then we're going to take our composite node, and then we're going to just, for the sake of this, we'll plug it in right here to our material, and then we'll do layer 1 blend color. So now let's Shift A the noise, or output the noise. Sorry, I always say my commands. I know this is a custom one. And then let's let it update. Jumped around a little bit. And let's just let this update. Okay, so we can see our noise right here. And there's really no structure to this. So first thing we're going to do is let's just start clamping values and finding that blending mode. So we can see right here, the first immediate issue is our noise is just too big. So let's go to noise right here. I like to turn the complexity up, and then I like to take the overall scale and just drag that up. And now you can start seeing this right here. So this is a grimy layer, and so since it's grime, it's going to kind of just be random all over the place. Let's Shift A, and now we can see, look, we have variation and shininess and roughness. And now we have this grimy material, or rather the shiny material cutting through the grime. So the grimy material is on top, the shiny material is under, cutting through, and then we have just this really basic node tree right here, which is great. Let's Shift A that. And you can really see, though, it's not super complex. And this is where I like to go overboard and just start copying all these over. But for the sake of the tutorial and for the sake of not killing y'all, we're just going to do 2 for this particular blending layer. So we'll go to click this into blending mode, and then it's on composite mode base color. Let's go to screen and see what happens. Okay, cool. So nothing happened, of course, and that's because we didn't change our noise. So let's just change the overall scale. And now you can start to see everything. And let's make this noise more of a subtractor noise. So let's take this black and clamp it up. And now we have some more variation introduced. So we went from this and okay, so we clamped a little too high. Let's take that down some. And it's really important to output your nodes noises so you can see it. Cool. So we have this layer screening with this layer, giving us this result, which is really cool. So we have that variation that we're looking for, and then we'll Shift A. And so now the shiny parts are only very rarely showing, which is nice. And that's what we're looking for in this material. So we have our first 2 materials, and we're just going to stack them on top of their blending modes right here. So we have our base material, which has no blending mode because it's our base material, and then our rough metal, which is stacking on top of that base material. Now let's go ahead and grab another material, and it's going to be our paint material. And a really good material for that is just a plastic material. Let's Shift A, and then we can select a color, and let's go with maybe an orange color this time, like a construction color. That's a really bright color, but it looks kind of cool. So we'll stick with this color right here. So now that we have that color, let's start blending that color with everything. So let's go ahead, and we already have this node tree right here. So what we can just do is just punch Control again, copy the node tree over, saving us just time from having to take each material and just copy it. Bring it back in, bring in the noises, bring in the ramps. We can just copy it like that. So let's go to RS Material, Layer 2, Blend Color, and then let's take our orange, and then let's take it to Layer 2 color. And make sure that you're always organizing your stuff. So I like to put my blends under my material. So we have our material right here, and then under that is our blends right there. And that's really just going to be keeping it clean and just keeping it looking organized, especially when you're working on a team. That's going to be pretty important for you. So just keep that in mind. Just try to keep a structure and try to keep it organized. Cool. So let's Shift A that, and you'll quickly see. Look, our material updated right here. Let's see what happens here. Cool. So just like that, we have this really grimy material, and maybe that this material is pretty glossy, so we can take the roughness up and just take it up a bit. Yeah, so we have this grime coming through, which is really nice. But let's say we don't want the material in certain parts, which is true. Like I said, the edges. So that's where the curvature node is going to come in, and then the curvature right here. And let's just output that and see what's going on. It's going to update. Yeah, so right now I'm only running 1080, so that's probably why it's taking a while to update. Okay, cool. So we have it updated right here, and we see where the white is where the material is going to come through. But we don't want that to be the case. We want it to be where we want the white to be opposite. So there's a couple ways we can do this. We can try a concave material, and that didn't do it for us. So let's go back to convex, and then let's grab this great node, the invert node. And like I said, you can use a ramp for that, but I'm going to use an invert node so everyone in the pipeline can see that I'm inverting this. And let's output that. Okay, so now that's something that we're looking for. So this orange material won't be where the black is. There's a couple of problems with this. The first one is there's not enough contrast, which is easily fixed by just grabbing a ramp, pulling it over, and then hooking that in. And now let's take a look, and waiting for it to process and update. Okay, so this ramp's not doing much. We want to take our values and just clamp them really close together. Okay, there we go. So another problem is our samples on this curvature needs to be turned up, and let's see what that does. Let's go to 128. So yeah, we have a way more defined ramp now, and I'm actually going to take this white and I'm going to clamp up to it, and now you can see we're getting way more black values, which is what we're looking for, which is why I love messing with the ramp node, because it can really remap some textures and how they interact and behave. Cool. So we have this node right here, and then we have this node right here, and then we're going to want to combine these two because we're really trying to just get this to our blend color, but we still want some variation. We still want some of this variation that this noise is supplying for us. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a color composite node, and then let's punch control, and then we have our base color, and then our blend color. And then we're on screen right now, which is not ideal, but let's see what happens. It might work for us. So let's just follow the path and blend to color. And then we'll just restructure our node system right here. And then let's output our material. Okay, so we have some edges and some variation, but I have a feeling that because of the screen that we did, yeah, so you can see some edges and stuff, but really this is not what we're looking for. We want less of this white and more of the black around here. So this is really where being a problem solver comes in. So let's first start with like these blending modes. Let's try multiply, and right off the bat, I kind of knew that one was going to work because I have a vague understanding of these blending modes, and I've used multiply a lot. So multiply worked in this case for this particular situation. So now let's output what we have. Shift A. So it's updating, and look at that. That looks pretty awesome. That looks really cool, and I really like the look of that. Actually liking the look of this more than our previous material. So yeah, that's fun right there. And there's a lot of stuff we can do, guys, but I want to talk a little bit more about getting a little bit out of the noise system and into some more procedural, less procedural methods, but still very helpful. So for that, I'm going to be opening up Quixel Bridge, which is something I love to use. It just allows a seamless workflow for me. So I'm going to go to my downloaded, and it's got to load everything in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in some grunge maps and some texture maps and just kind of play around with those and kind of add some variation on top of this, because the noise is nice, but you start to get that noise look, if you know what I'm talking about. You start to get kind of just these splotches that are random, but they still kind of look like a noise. And if you're trying to recreate something like scratches, it's not going to really work. That splotchiness, you need a sharp cut scratch that's precise, and sometimes the best way to do that is just with an image texture. So that's what we'll be doing. Okay, so I'm in my downloads folder of my Quixel Bridge, and you don't have to use Quixel. You can use any type of place that has grunge maps and stuff, but for me, I love the workflow Quixel. So first off, scratched painted metal. Now that's something we're looking for. Let's go ahead and just drag that in. Cool. And then punch yes. Okay, we'll import that. And then let's keep browsing, because I think there's some other stuff we can find here. Rust. That's something else we're going to want to use. So we'll take that and pull that in. And I'm not saying that it's not impossible to recreate these with noises, because I guess some experts could. But for me, just dragging these in and using them just right off the bat, that's really just the way to go. So we'll start off with these two. Scratches and rust. That's something pretty important. That's something we see in real life, and that's going to kind of bring our image to life and really just get that, push that final cell. So let's think about what a scratch layer would do. Our scratches are cutting through all the layers down to the bottom material, down to the bottom shiny surface. So what we'll do is we'll create, we can just take our base material right here, control drag it, and then we're going to plug that into our layer 3 color right here. And let's punch Shift A on this roughness texture, and let's output the roughness so we know what we're doing. And I want to make sure, okay, so this is the scratch layer, cool. So something that I know for sure is that scratches, they'll kind of there'll be more contrast in this. There'll be one really sharp scratch, but not really this like fall off or anything. So what I'm gonna do is grab our friend the ramp node. Okay, that was a little weird to say. Whatever. Grab our friend the ramp node. Sure, we'll call him a friend. Why not? Done more for me than anyone. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's input this, and then let's input it into the ramp node, and then let's take it into the ramp node, and then let's drag it up, and then let's do our layer 3 blend color, which I think I accidentally unplugged it. There we go. This is why I don't do long videos, because I start to get a little crazy. Okay, Shift A. Okay, so we're clamping too high on the top because we just copied this ramp node. So now we can start seeing some stuff being revealed. Cool, so now we have this sharp contrast. So this material will only be blending on the white, which is what we want. We don't have to invert or anything. So let's take our material, and okay, so we already have it hooked up here. Let's make sure layer 3 color, layer 3 blend, layer 2 color. Yeah, just to keep this organized. Cool. So layer 3 color, layer 3 blend. Let's output that and see what happens. Might not work sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes things surprise me. And you can see as we've been iterating and adding, it's been taking longer to process, and it's been taking longer to kind of just it's taking longer to render and process because we have all these materials stacking on top of each other. And okay, if you look here, my friends, and I know this might be hard to see in the YouTube compression, so I'll make this a little bit bigger for y'all. So you can see, guys, we got our scratches coming through right there, and yeah, just like that, we're doing some good stuff. We're getting there. Super happy. This is exciting. And you can see this isn't as crazy as my last one, and it doesn't have to be as crazy as that. I was really just having some fun. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about something else that we haven't considered yet, and that is dirt. And that can get a little complicated because dirt's not gonna gather on the it's not gonna gather on the edges here. It's not gonna gather, like, we can't really define it. It's not gonna be random noise pattern. It's gonna gather in crevices. And there's one node that I know that can find that, and that is going to be our Ambient Inclusion node. And this is another reason I love Redshift. We can just find our Ambient Inclusion. Let's Shift A this. So remember, our dirt node is going to output over the white areas, and you can see we have a lot of white areas right now. So the first thing we're going to do is just grab a ramp. Shift. Whoops, not Shift. I always do Shift. Control. There we go. And we're going to plug that into our input color and then output that again. So hopefully we introduce some contrast in this, and we'll just let it update and trace. And I just realized I couldn't see the whole thing, so I'll make this smaller. Whoops. This is crazy. Okay, we're on another level now. Okay, cool. So this basically, where it is white is going to be where we're going to be blending. So yeah, this is crazy. We want less white and more black on this. So cool. That's really nice. But the problem is it's kind of the opposite of what we want, right, guys? Because we don't want the dirt to be here. We want it to be in there. So we'll take our friend oh gosh, why did I say friend? This is so sad. We're going to take our invert node, color invert. You can tell I've spent too much time doing this when you start referring to your nodes as friends. And then let's Shift A that. Okay, now we're talking about something here. And let's take this ramp and let's just clamp it a little bit this way. a little bit more. And you can see how this kind of just, this is great. This is why it's procedural, guys, because we can do stuff like this. Okay, cool. So let's take our color invert and this whole node tree right here, and let's make a material for it. So let's just grab our base material, and then let's say, okay, so this material, this is dirt. Well, let's think about what dirt is. Dirt is not really reflective. It's really dark, so we can start building off that. We're gonna do, let's do plastic for this, and let's just output our plastic so we can see it right there. And I think plastic's a very versatile material, so that's why I like to use it. Okay, so we have our plastic right here. Let's take our roughness and crank that all the way up, because this is dirt, guys. It's not gonna be shiny, it's not gonna be reflective. And then let's take our, we can also take our diffuse roughness off, and it's basically saying when a photon hits the diffuse that it's not going to bounce the color and the light as much as well. So we can kind of just, it'll make it a little bit darker is what I'm trying to say. And then our reflection roughness all the way up, cool. But this is a little too gray for dirt. So let's take this material and kind of just clamp it down like 6%. Okay, so that's more like it. You can see how dark it's getting now in those crevices. So let's plug it up and see what we're working with. So we have our layer 4. This is our color. And then we're going to take our, remember our ambient inclusion, and take that. And whoops, slipping around here. Layer 4, blend color. And let's shift A that. And it's just gonna take a while to process, guys, like I said. Okay, here we go. So in theoretically, what should be happening is we have this dirt layer kind of going on top, getting grimy and grungy, and just making it more darker in the crevices. And there's only one way you can figure out if that happened or not. And this is another great feature about Redshift that I love, is just this screenshot feature. So let's just take a picture. Cool. And let's just go ahead and unhook these nodes right here. And then we're gonna let it just trace up some. And you can see how long it's taking this to do. And that's just simply because we're stacking these materials together. And let's take a picture. So this is with the dirt, and this is without the dirt. So now you can really see what I was talking about the reflections and the light bouncing. This created a more dramatic look on our character, but it also kind of added the function that when this material deep down in here, it's not going to be as reflective, it's going to be more grimy and dirty because it's close to the gears, it's close to the cogs. So yeah, that you can see the difference right there with that, guys. So hopefully what you've learned today is a very procedural way of doing textures, and if that's the case, then I succeeded in my goal for today. Please keep in mind a couple things. One is we really didn't create bump maps and roughness maps for these. We didn't add a displacement. These are all things you're going to want to do, and you can jump over. It seems like I'm sponsored by these people. One day they'll sponsor me, hopefully. I like to use Quixel just to pull some stuff out, and what we can do is just go to like a metal, and then we can find a metal that we think would suit. So you can take like the bump map from this rusty metal if you want, and the normal map or the bump map, whatever you want to call it, and then we can take it in, and let's just shift let's do it to our paint material, because that's going to be the biggest dramatic change we'll see, because that's what most of the material is coming through on this. So just real quick, just to show y'all, and then bump map. What I did on the other material, which is the incorrect way, please do not do it this way, is I just took the roughness and I plugged into the bump. That's a no-go, guys. That was me being lazy, not finding a bump map. That will create a lot of noise and a lot of undesired attributes when stuff starts to happen. So when stuff starts happening, when you start to render out animations and stuff, you'll get some crazy noise and stuff that you weren't expecting, and that's the reason why you'll be turning your samples rates up so high. So normal, make sure it's tangent spaced normal, cool. And then let's just plug it into our material, and let's go to overall bump input, because this is after all a bump map. And what we should see is some more detail come out of this paint. And it's got to process the texture, processing texture. Keep in mind, I'm just showing y'all the paint, but do this for all your materials if you want. Okay, so now look at this, guys. Look at the detail we're getting out of this because of the bump map. And this is not geometry, this is faking the geometry. So if you get really close, you can see, you start to notice it. And there's a couple things you can do for that. One of them is just take your bump right here, your normal, go to general. It's got to update, it's trying to load, and just change your scale to like 2 and 2. And depending on how this is mapping, you might want to use a triplanar mapping node for this. But in this case, it works pretty well, so I'm not going to get into that. It's going to process our texture, so let's take a screenshot before that happens, so we can just maybe, okay, we got it, cool. And then it's going to start rendering. So what we should see is kind of finer bumps because we changed the scale of it here. And it's taking a lot longer to render, but you can barely tell because it's just so noisy. So we have these big bumps, and then by changing the scale, you can see barely these little tiny roughnesses. And they this is all updating because of the just because it's taking so long to update because we've added all this stuff to it. So let's go ahead and plug in our ambient occlusion again. I just forgot to plug those back in. Layer 4. This is our layer 4 color, and then we'll take our layer 4 right here, and this is our layer 4 blend color. You can keep stacking stuff on. Just remember when you're doing this, think about, okay, so we got scratches, that's going to be on top. Okay, so scratches will be on top, but we'll put dirt on top of scratches because we don't want the scratches to be inside the mech because there won't be scratches in the crevices. Okay, so just start layering that stuff in your head and start thinking about materials and how they are in real life, and also think about reference images. That will be helpful when you're doing something like this. And that's really my biggest tip. If you want to go out and look at some big machinery. There's probably a construction place around you somewhere. There's construction like right out here, and there's some big machinery, and you can see how everything looks in real life. And that's really what we're doing with CG. We're recreating the real world, and I think it's beautiful to do that because you get these really cool effects and these really cool abilities to tell stories and stuff, because maybe you don't have the budget in your film to create this crazy robot in real life, but you do have the budget to hire a 3D artist, or you are the 3D artist and you can create it. So that was probably a long video, guys. I don't know what to say. I just really wanted to share this with y'all. I spent 12 or 13 hours coming up with this system, and that's just after some reading of the manual and stuff, I found out that this was the best way to do it as far as I know. So if y'all like this video, please subscribe and maybe listen to how clean my voice is. Maybe consider maybe consider joining the Patreon to support me for further advancements to the setup, like for example, watch this. Oh, nope. For example, maybe a microphone. Thank you, Patreon supporters. Y'all are the best. Thank you so much for supporting me. I hope to build up this community more, and I hope to bring y'all more tutorials and everything. And I know I used to do Octane tutorials, but because of some stuff that I've been working on, I've had to use Redshift, and I love Redshift. So I'm going to be using Redshift for a lot of the future videos. But that's okay because it's a really powerful tool, and there's not a lot of content out there about Redshift. So hopefully I can kind of fill that gap for everyone. That's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Please like, please subscribe, do all that stuff. And yeah, it just really helps when you watch the videos and stuff. And if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed, well, you might as well, right? You watched what was this, like an hour of my content? So you must like my content a little bit. So yeah, just subscribe, or check me out on Patreon, or both. Okay guys, that's it. Thank you for watching. My name is Theo Kerr, and I really hope that you learned something with this tutorial and that you can take your artwork to the next level. So guys, thanks for watching. Peace out.